Could I have everyone's attention, please?
Hi. So at 6 o'clock to 6:15, we're having what's considered, I guess, a public hearing. Due to state changes in the various codes, we've had to update our code of conduct. By updating the code of conduct, we have to reinstitute a public hearing due to 30 days. So right now, if anyone wants to look at the code of conduct, ask any questions about it, ask why we changed things, what some of the upgrades were, we'll be glad to answer your questions the best we can. So I know Polly, she was highly involved in it. I was involved in it. Some board members were. So as we changed policy for those state updates, we had to update our code of conduct so it would be in compliance. So you didn't have the law on one side and our code of conduct on the other side saying something else. So for example, I'll give you, the dress code was updated. Doesn't mean we changed the dress code. All it meant was we had to change language because some of our language was like gender specific. So we talk about clothing that might basically target girls rather than all students. So we had to use more general codes like appropriate dress, covered, whatever. So the language had to be changed so all genders were basically treated equal. Then there were some other codes that were changed. As many of you know, the Board of Regents and the state legislature changed things late in the year. It's always better if they do it before our year begins, but they don't seem to understand that. So they changed some things in September and October. The Regents changed it, I think, in September or August. The state legislature voted on some things in, I believe, September. We got the update from the service. The service basically said, these are the new codes that you need to follow with suspension, supporting students. So for example, if a student is suspended out of school, in the old days it was 2 hours of instruction, now it's 3 hours of instruction. If you're doing certain things with special ed students, for example, just simply by removing them from a room, that basically counts as a change of program, and we have to document things differently. So that's not necessarily all in the code. Some of that's just in the policy changes. So anything that was done to be in compliance with the state, and it's not a substantial change or anything that was directed by the district. But if there's any questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you.
If not, we just got to hang out here until 6:15 in case one of you guys comes up with a great question. But if you don't, relax and enjoy each other.
Good evening.
Yeah. Hello. Yep.
You got it.
Good evening. My name is Abby Winona, and I am a senior here at Beekmantown this year. To jump right in, I've read the new code of conduct pretty thoroughly, and I have to say I was a little bit shocked and a little displeased with some of the changes. What is this restorative process that you guys are talking about? That's all I saw in it.
I'm sorry, please say that one more time.
The restorative process.
Thank you.
Basically, it's something that we are now required to do per state ed, where we got to go through a process. It doesn't mean that it stops discipline, but we have to show how we're restoring a student back to being a student in good standing. So it's not just, hey, we suspend you, now come back to school. There's a whole process that has to go into play. So it's supposed to show that we're helping students to grow. So what happens is, not so much here, but let's call it New York City, you basically just find reasons to throw kids out of school every 5 days. And what's happened is nothing is ever set up for when the child re-enters to correct things. And sometimes when those students come back into the building, within 15 minutes, they're suspended again. So there's never a reentry plan, there's never a plan of what the student needs to do. So before there was a restorative process, if a student was suspended out or in school here in Beekmantown, there would, before they go back to class, be a meeting with your principals, with your associate principals, with their teachers, and sometimes their team. But that was never done in a lot of places. So it's basically a best practice, but now you have to document that you're doing such a thing.
Is it true that, after I read it, is it true that kids are allowed to have backpacks in school now? Like all throughout the day?
I don't know about that one. Does it say that we have
It
backpacks?
said that there was, whatever was crossed out with red was what you were getting rid of, correct?
Oh, if it was crossed out in red, it might have been something the state directed us to cross out in red.
Yeah. Okay, so kids are allowed backpacks in school. And I guess I did.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
I think at this point, there are no changes active yet. This is a proposal. We're looking for feedback on things that might be tweaked if we have to. And this won't go into effect until after another vote, which will be at least 30 days from now. But this is exactly what we want, is suggestions and ideas and things that people have concerned or like, so that we know how to keep moving forward. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just concerned about having backpacks or like changes in the dress code. Kids take this to a huge extreme. There's already kids that have already, I spoke with several of my friends already on this, and some agreed and some are really excited about this, because that means they basically get to wear, do whatever they want. So they have more freedom.
It still has to still be appropriate for the world of work and the world of school. So it doesn't really change anything. It just makes it a little, a kid will challenge it. More kids will probably get sent to the office challenging it. But it really doesn't change anything. Basically, if you come to school dressed decently, if you come to school not wearing vulgarities or hate on your shirt or your hat, you're going to be fine. So more often than not, kids are fine the way they come to school. So if you want to challenge the system just to see if you get sent to the office, you probably will. It's really no different. It's just that we can't say the hem of a skirt. That becomes gender specific. You can't say spaghetti straps. But if your underwear is showing, that's inappropriate for school or the world of work. So you still could get sent to the office and be corrected.
Okay. Wearing pajamas in school and things like that. Is that on there too?
Got a copy of this.
Well, I do not. Yeah, pajamas is crossed out as it sits right now.
Yeah. And then you'll have your spirit days where you
I agree that spirit days should be okay, but I don't think every day should be allowed, especially for kids that we're preparing them. You guys are. You're preparing us for the future.
Right.
I know at work, I'm not allowed to wear certain things. I've been thinking ahead of time for these kids, instead of being like, well, you can't wear this. Like, they're going to go to work and they're going to think that they're able to wear that because they did in school.
Right.
Is your overall concern that the language is too vague? Would that be? Is that a fair statement? It sounds like that the concern is that the language is too vague.
Yeah, I would say it's a little vague, especially when it comes to like when kids are even in junior and whatnot.
Fair enough.
More specifics would be appreciated. Just for
And we agree. But we're following what the state's basically requesting that we do. We're having the hearing. Your questions are great. Now we could go check with legal and say, hey, you know what? Even our students are realizing that the New York State Legislature doesn't think things through.
I think we already know that. I just have 7 months left in this place, and I just want to leave kids being the same way that I was taught growing up. I know that it's very difficult to raise a child. We've just all been through so much with COVID and everything like that. I just don't want kids thinking that they're allowed to do whatever they want to do in life, because that's just not the case. And they already think that. They're already getting away with so much, even just out of school. So.
But if we could add the more detailed information or examples of, we could put that in. I mean, if you think about pajamas, it's not gender specific.
Right.
So I don't see why it's something like that.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, though, it's also not very clear what you wear for pajamas and what I wear for pajamas are different. I mean, you wear flannels, he wears silks, I wear sweatpants.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so what's pajamas?
Yeah.
I appreciate the comment that, although we're trying to capture it, maybe some of the language might be a touch vague.
Yeah, t-shirt and sweatpants for me or shorts, and guess what? But I still can't wear them at work. I got to put on a suit.
It just worries me also with the whole backpack thing, because I just don't know what kids are going to bring in. They can bring in anything they want now if they were to do that.
Yeah.
Because none of you guys can look through theirs, because that's private property. So.
No. Great. I'm glad you stepped up.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Are we ready to rock and roll? I'd like to call the board meeting to order. Who are we up to for the pledge? Patty's turn.
Alrighty.
It's over here, guys.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think we were being told that we should all turn our microphones on. It's hard to hear back there.
Mine is on. Do I need to speak louder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
The mic is on.
Oh, we can't hear you. Thank you.
That's unusual. Calling the meeting to order. Roll call.
Troy Anderson.
Present.
Patrice Dean.
Present.
Wayne Bebo.
Present.
John Fairchild.
Present.
Christopher Gadway.
Here.
Patty LaFlemme. Here. Ed Marin. Richard Sears.
Here.
David Trudeau.
Here.
Ozzie Comer.
Okay. Resolved that the interim superintendent of school recommends to the Board of Education to approve the agenda. A motion?
I'll motion.
Chris, on the second? Wayne? Any comments? Discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Nobody. Motion carries. Okay, presentations. Our first presentation is Hillary Sponable on the Model UN. Where's some helpers?
I do have some helpers. My name is Hillary Sponable. I'm a French teacher here. I'm a CLO Civic Readiness Coordinator. And tonight my most important role is Harvard Model UN Advisor. And we're here to talk about how Model UN really has transferable skills and fully supports the district's mission, which is to create students who are going to be quality contributors to society and themselves. So my entourage here is going to talk about how Model UN is really a large part of our school. And before I do that, I just want to put a little plug for Beekmantown Model UN, which took place in October. We had 11 schools attend. We had schools from St. Lawrence County. We had Parishville Hopkinton here. And that was our furthest west contingency. And in the south, we had schools all the way from Schroon Lake. So we're really expanding here at Beekmantown, and we are one of the best teams in the area, but also in the nation, thanks to our recent award 2 years ago at Harvard Monument of Outstanding Small School Delegation. So without further ado, I will let my delegates give a presentation about what they've learned and about the program as a whole.
Are we going on the screen behind me?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, I am. Yes, just the show. I would first like to introduce myself. My name is April Secor. I'm the president of Harvard Model United Nations. And our presentation today covers two really important aspects of Model UN. First is the valuable skills that you'll be taught here and the real-life implications. We're more than just a club that likes to debate. You will carry these skills into the real world.
My name is Lizzie. I'm a 10th grader here at Beekmantown, and I've been in the Model UN Club for 2 years at this point. We'd like to start off with a quote from Ryan Villanova, the co-founder for Best Delegate USA. Best Delegate USA is a website where any delegate from anywhere in the world can go online and they can learn how to do Model UN and learn how to properly participate in committee. Model UN trains today's students to do tomorrow's leaders. Students who do Model UN would one day change the world.
So the first part that we'd like to cover would be the skills that we use in Model UN. The first one would be public speaking. Public speaking. So as a debate club, we definitely focus on this aspect especially because the way that you carry yourself, the way that your voice sounds, your lack of hesitation, that is what makes an impression on our delegates. So that is what we try to strive for the most. And it's very nerve-wracking if you're a public speaker, especially because BMUN for our 10th grade year is required for our delegates, or at least used to be, depending on the level of world history that you're taking. So the way that we prepare them for the real world is we have them participate, and they don't represent themselves, they represent another nation. In that way, they are unbiased as they represent their specific perspective.
So you end up becoming that country and you end up valuing those issues of that country. So that means developing nations who are struggling with poverty and such. You end up focusing on those issues, and it actually allows students to kind of leave the surrounding environment that we have and consider the situations around the globe. And especially when we went into HMUN, which we'll get into later, that kind of opened our horizons on just how we see other countries, because we actually ended up debating with other nations, like people from other countries, alongside us. So that was pretty cool.
Communication as well, as you're not just making a speech to a crowd that has enough say, you have to speak to these other delegates, and you must remain polite, impartial, and as you're talking to them, you have to be professional as well. But it tends to lead to cooperation and networking, so shaking hands with delegates, the way that you carry yourself, is very essential.
In addition, as well, using these networking skills and cooperation, as you foster these skills, working with people you never know, ends up in the real life when you're off working in another job or you're going off to college and you're trying to get into these high-level programs. These help you properly communicate yourself with other people and showing people that you know what you're talking about and you know how to carry yourself throughout life. The next process in Model UN is the writing, presenting, and researching process. So to start, delegates have to write you start with a working paper, and then you turn your working paper into a resolution. These working paper and resolutions, there's a format of writing that you learn as well. We, as the Harvard delegate team, we go into the individual classrooms around our school who participate in Model UN, and we help teach our students how to write in these ways. But to be able to write, you need to be able to understand standard English procedures and all these grammar rules to make it sound concise and present. The second part of this is presenting. When you present as well today, presenting through Model UN has helped me present here today. I learned how to speak properly, not get nervous, not stutter as much. As well, it helps you go around and speak in front of large crowds where you may be nervous as well. Finally, the researching aspect, which happens usually before your writing and presenting process, where you have to go online and you have to research not from how you think, but how your country thinks about these issues. And you need to become by yourself an impartial opinion from it. As if you are delegating from yourself and arguing as someone who is presenting from your point of view, you will not be successful in committee.
And I think that this is the most important piece to touch on is expanding perspectives. So different cultures around the world, especially when you get to H1, they have different cultures, different perspectives. However, as our own H1 team has done, we've previously represented the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, in which they have viewpoints that we might not share, especially us coming from the United States, a democratic area, where they come from a more communist area. But being able to defend those values effectively, even if you do not believe in them, is one of the most important skills that you could definitely learn in Model UN.
So the first conference that we start out is the one we host here, put on by me and my fellow team members, the Beekman conference. This year at Beekman, we had 4 committees, with our largest committee being political, with over 100 students from all around the area participating. This is an introductory conference, so even though we've already taught some of these skills, students can still learn these skills on a more face-to-face presence, so they can ask the chair and ask the people running the committee questions. But there's still those aspects of these more developed delegates from other schools and within our own schools there to help them along the process. The next step we take is going to NCCS, where they hold theirs. And this is a little bit less of a beginner committee and more of an experienced committee. They have 4 committees there as well, and they have different topics from us, so it helps bolster those researching skills and bolster your public speaking skills, because they also have different schools going there than that we have here. The next trip that we take is down to New York City, where we debate at Dalton, a private school in New York City. Thanks to yellow funding. We debate with some of the best delegates from around New York City, who also happen to be some of the best delegates at our next and our most complicated conference at Harvard. Some of those best people who go to Dalton, who oftentimes they have more time to research and more time to present, as they have a class that actually talks about this. We found we're very successful there, as we've really bolstered those skills throughout BMUN and NCMUN compared to some of the others who are just beginners there and only take classes on that. Finally, we have our HMUN team, which is a tryout team, which you have to do the previous 3 conferences to join the HMUN team. And in the HMUN team, we fundraise and we go to Harvard in January, where we debate with people from all over the globe, other countries, other states, and we debate on our topics on a multitude of different topics. This year, some of our topics range from children to the environment to the Western Sahara conflict, and it's a multitude of research and a multitude of opportunities to meet new people and create yourself new opportunities when you go to university or college.
For the BMUN conference, we actually have been trying to fund for the HMUN trip through sponsorships. So throughout our BMUN conference, we have sponsors, local businesses just around like images to support them. And at NCCS, we actually were very successful this past year. We actually ended up sweeping, I don't know how many.
We got 15 awards.
50 awards, which is a third of the awards. We're all Beekmantown delegates, and that's due to the strength from the BMUN conference that we hold. Actually, most of the awards go to BMUN students, like Beekmantown students who are in sophomore or junior years who are trying to get to that new level. And for HMUN and DMUN, it also takes more funding, and we're still on our way to getting the full funding for HMUN, so it's more affordable for all of our delegates. We have more delegates this year, 15. We're trying to bring to HMUN, and so that's going to take a lot of us to afford the hotels and the food and all of that.
Hi, my name is Olivia Bergen, and I'm a freshman at Beekmantown, and this is my second year doing Model UN. And just touching on the fundraising for HMUN as well, there's been a multitude of fundraising that we have done this year to be able to support the 15 delegates that are going to HMUN. But since there's 15 of us going this year, it's much more difficult, and unfortunately delegates may have to pay more out of pocket than expected at the beginning. Oh, and just a little bit of advertising. On December 9th, there's a fundraiser at Chipotle. So if you would like to come and support our HMUN team, I think it's 10% of proceeds go to us. So we'd really appreciate that.
And I'm also going to add on really quick on Hayden Miller-Whipple. I'm the treasurer of Harvard Model UN. And with these sponsorships, we are not only raising money for ourselves to better our program, but we're also bringing in a lot of businesses from around the community to help support our program and bring awareness to this amazing, I may just call it a sport that all of us do, and it's kind of like a community event, and we also bring about a lot of other members from the community into this for Model UN, so it helps build that aspect of community where a lot of students and businesses can come together to learn about world issues.
Next up, we'd like to talk about the real-life implications. So in terms of communication, I find that this skill reflects a lot in my life because I've had multiple jobs over the course of my high school career, and when you're in the interviewing process, which a lot of our students would definitely be nervous about, but when you're in that interviewing process and carrying yourself confidently, you're used to people asking you questions, you're used to responding on time, it's definitely something that I believe needs to be taught, and that's why I believe that Model UN is so important to younger students.
Just adding on to cooperation, you really do need to have a multitude of levels for teamwork because you not only have to be able in committee to find other nations with similar perspectives, but you also have to be able to work with the people that you are arguing against to come to one conclusion, hopefully. As well as connection building, it'll help you build lifelong connections with friends. I know I've personally met many friends through Model UN who I'm very excited to be able to see again when I go back to committee and just talk and be able to debate with them once again. In a world where anxiety and depression levels are higher than ever for teenagers, we really do need to have good coping mechanisms, which I will say that I think the 7 mindsets that we've implemented in school is helping with in some ways to help teach students things that they maybe wouldn't get at home. And I think that Model UN can also provide some coping mechanisms for stress because when you're in committee, and especially when you're having your first committee, you're usually having maybe butterflies in your stomach because you're nervous. And you haven't really done this before because it's a new thing for you. And I think that it's essential that before you graduate high school, you have these skills and these implementations so that when you go into that first job interview or maybe a college interview, you're ready and you're prepared and you have the proper skills to be able to do it.
say that MUN is fun, even though it is stressful at times because, you have to research and you really have to put a lot of effort into it. And you have to be able to carry yourself a certain way in committee. But at being on this year, I know, being a moderator, I had a lot of fun watching our committee. We had a crisis speaker who was a father from the Philippines, played by a student, Jason Trigg. And I will say, our committee got quite rowdy during that crisis. It was.
Do you want to talk about how crises work for people who haven't been in all UN?
So essentially, typically it happens in the middle of committee, or pretty much any time that the directors or moderators decide, and someone will come in, known as a crisis speaker, and there will be a sudden situation that affects to the topic that you were assigned for committee, and they'll talk and they'll kind of give you a different perspective change, which will cause a little bit of a stir up in committee, and delegates will have to be able to think on their feet and maybe be talking about something that they weren't anticipating, or something that relates to a certain country that now that country either has to have a response, or opposing countries that maybe are getting a little bit of backlash from the issue have to figure out a way for people to still want to be in their block, even though they just took a massive hit. Lastly, with real-life implications, we already kind of touched on this, but research skills really are essential, especially if you're going into some sort of STEM field. I know that it also helps with schooling because sometimes you're assigned projects in school that you have to be able to research and have adequate information on the topic. Maybe you're writing an essay on something of your choice, or you're doing a science project for a science fair, and you have to really know what you're talking about, or people are going to be able to tell if you don't know.
Do you have any questions for us?
When is the Harvard trip? January.
So yes, it will be during our Regents Week. It is a 5-day trip, but 4 days of conference. So,
How much more money do you need to raise?
how much more money? So the question that I heard back here that I will address is how much more money do we need to raise? So the budgeting for our club academic situation is kind of different than some of the other clubs. The school provides $3,000 in a budget line for us. We also, past practice, have taken $1,500 from the social studies budget line. So far this year, our 15 delegates have raised over $5,000. And we, ideally, if we want to have adequate transportation and have it just be with our own school, I would say probably about 5,000 more. So it is a very costly, program, but it's one of the only programs. It is one of the only programs in the school that brings together so many disciplines and provides real-world skills, as the students have shown. So we are working on doing that. I've applied for 2 grants, one from the Rotary Club, one from Aldi. I've applied for all kinds of funding the best I can, but we are doing our best to be able to send students. Ideally, if the district were to fully fund us, which is what Bow Flat Valley does, and a few other local schools are almost entirely funded by their budget lines, and then the fundraising would be for like food at conference or jackets, things like that. I would say that figure should be close to $6,000 in our budget line rather than $3,000 if I were to estimate funding situations.
But you said you're still about $5,000 shy.
Yeah.
So with the $3,000 from the budget line, $1,500 from you said the social studies budget.
Yeah.
You still said that there's about a delta of $5,000, and then there's out of pocket, correct?
Yes.
So what's the average out of pocket? that students get there?
Last year, the costs were lower. They raised hotel prices. The buses are costing more money.
Absolutely.
This year. Last year, the out-of-pocket cost was for jackets and then for food during the conference. So I got a gift card from Stewart's, and the kids went on a shopping spree at Stewart's for the most nutritious food they can get that they can prepare in a microwave. Oh, actually, there's no microwave, but there's a fridge and a coffee maker. Things that they paid out of pocket, I would estimate $70 for the jacket, and we usually estimate about $250 for food and incidentals throughout the 5-day conference.
For everybody or per student?
Per student.
Okay.
So that's what students end up paying. And then we did end up fundraising enough last year. We split a bus with Peru, which was a very interesting experience. And
yeah, we don't want to split a bus with them.
Yeah, we had to go over Killington Notch in a minibus with no bathroom. It was a whole thing. But anyway, so we are doing everything we can to make it as cost effective as possible.
A couple questions.
Sure.
So what would your total budget be?
Our total budget is about $15,000 to send kids there. And I do have all the figures if the board would like me to send them.
$15,000 that covers your program for the year?
That covers Harvard Model UN.
Just Harvard?
Yes.
What about all the other?
So DMUN is paid for through ELO funding. That the district has committed about $30,000. It is very expensive, but we're bringing 35 delegates, not just the Harvard team, to go. So that's through ELO. We know that could go away at any time. North Country Model UN last year, $1,600 in addition to the funds that I've talked about, come from the social studies budget line. And that's open to any student who participates in BMUN. So that's not a tryout thing. It's open to any student who is interested.
And how many students in our school participate in Model UN?
So at Beekmantown Model UN, total we had 370 delegates from all of the schools, and this year I would estimate it was about 150 in our school, so a quarter of our school participated in Model UN.
Thank you.
Other questions that you might have for them or for me? I know all the money because I'm stressing over a bus right now, so it's all fresh in my mind. The bus.
So what are you looking for from the board?
I guess what I'm looking for the board would be continued support. We already get tons of great support in the way of administration supporting what we do. We ran that conference with 360 kids while the school day was going. So I had teachers who volunteered to come into class, to come into the conference and supervise. I've got great support with the cafeteria staff who served an extra 200 meals that day. I've got great support as far as EdTech goes. They set up whole Wi-Fi networks and we had no Wi-Fi issues. We were able to create a website that everyone can see. So what the board could really do for us would be to help us financially increase that Model UN budget line. I'm not sure how all of that is done, but that is what we're really looking for because my kids are really trying to fundraise and they're doing a great job. They have great ideas, but it's just not enough. With such a small team, we can only do so much. We're doing quite well, but I would say increased funding from the board in any way that is possible for that budget line.
Have you ever run into issues with students being able to muster the $250 out of pocket?
So I have had students in the past. So Harvard does offer financial aid, and I have had students come forward for that. In that case, the club has, from the extracurricular account, has to cover the fees from there, and then we would get a check in reimbursement afterward. So that comes out of our extracurricular funds from fundraising.
Understood. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
So much.
Okay, our next presenter is Dr. Mark Davey, Superintendent of CVS BOCES, and Amy Campbell, Assistant Superintendent for Educational Services, CVS BOCES. Dr. Davey, are you going to be using the projector also?
For the second presentation.
For the second, not the first. Okay. He didn't say he was here when we did the roll call. Two. One for Ed.
We're good. Okay.
All set.
Okay, great. Vice President Fairchild, members of the Board of Education, your administrative team, staff, students and parents, thank you for all being here this evening. And we are thrilled, CVS is thrilled, to present a brief overview about CVS BOCES and as part of our annual presentation that we conduct with our component districts. I am delighted this evening to have our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Mrs. Amy Campbell, who's joining me this evening, and we will be focusing on school support services this evening. So I'd like to first and foremost start off and say we appreciate the opportunity to share a brief update. I know last year we had an outstanding presentation where many of your CV Tech students were part of the presentation. This evening we're adjusting a little bit and looking at our school support services, and Mrs. Campbell will provide an overview and an excellent update. I would like to start off first, however, as part of my presentation as District Superintendent, and share a little bit of information. First and foremost, you have a new folder that's in front of you. This is for the 23-24 school year. You'll notice not only wonderful pictures of students, our students from across the region, as well as on the back, a summary of our mission, vision, our core beliefs from CVS, and our current board members, our BOCES board members. And you'll also notice that your Board of Education President, Mr. Ed Marin, is also our BOCES Board Vice President. And he has been on our BOCES board more than a dozen years, and he's been an officer for quite a few of those years. So we're thankful for his service and appreciative of his leadership on the BOCES board. He represents your district and all of our component districts and students throughout the region very well. So I would like to just share a couple of insights as well. As you look inside the folder, you will also notice and see our rebranding efforts for each of the divisions. CVS, if you remember for many years, our symbol, our logo was mountains and a lake. It really didn't have a lot to it. It was a beautiful logo, but it really focused and referenced on CVS as the region. This is a rebranding effort where you'll notice each one of our divisions have updated, and CVS as a whole with our Champlain Valley Educational Services logo, and each one of the colors of our letters is indicative of one of our divisions. So there's a lot of coordination. We worked with Boyer Benner on our rebranding efforts and spent a lot of time really talking about the development and also putting that together. But you'll also notice really our updates as well inside. With that said, I would just like to briefly touch on a few of our fact sheets, as well as the information that's in the folder, and Mrs. Campbell will provide information about the school support services. Next, I'd like to just refer you to this handout sheet. And this really is a summary sheet that talks about CVS and the Beekmantown Central School District and your services summary. Just to acknowledge and start off, I'd like to thank Mr. Besson, who is your interim superintendent, who's doing an excellent job representing the district with our chief school officers. Mr. Besson, it's been wonderful to work with you. You're representing the district at a high level. You've been well received by our component districts, and your experience and background is really beneficial, and it's a pleasure working with you with our chief school officers.
Work with all of them too.
Thank you. You'll also notice, for example, next, that for the 23-24 school year, your current aid ratio is 66.8%. So what that means is that when you spend $1 on CVS services, for those services that are appropriate for the coaster aid, you get back almost 67 cents on the dollar. So it's a way that Beekmantown will actually take advantage of shared services and be able to benefit and support your continued participation in those services. That money does come back in next year's state aid. You'll also notice that with the services purchased by Beekmantown, we'll start off and just hit a few of the highlights administratively. The administrative and capital budget, the Health and Workers' Compensation Consortium, that has approximately 4,500 policies and over 10,000 lives. It's over $100 million, and CVS, our health benefits office, supports that at a high level, including all of your employees and their families and the retirees. You'll also notice there's the Employee Benefits Plan Administration and FSA HRA, Personnel Recruiting, Board of Education, Professional Development, and so on and so forth. Our Career and Technical Education, our CTE program, the CV Tech. Currently, there are 73 Beekmantown school district students who participate. We want to thank Mr. Bazile and your administrative team for their support and working closely with us on our participation, and our students at this time have a 5-year average. We use enrollment averaging for the participation of our students and cost-effective use. For special education, currently Beekmantown has 11 students who are part of our special education program, and we want to acknowledge Mr. Renner, who does an excellent job, as well as your team in working with us and partnering with serving your students at a high level. We look forward and continue to work with them across our special education continuum, and you can see the overview of the programs available. On the backside as well, you see a summary of the school support services, which Beekmantown participates in, and Mrs. Campbell will share an update about that information, and we look forward to that update. And lastly, the cross-contracted services which Beekmantown participates in. In summary, Beekmantown is a really solid and strong user of CVS's services, as well as the cross-contracts that are available. It's a way for you to cost and really incentivize the sharing of your participation, and really to get reimbursed for that participation and support your future budget. I would like to also acknowledge this evening that we do have updated fact sheets. And the fact sheets that are also in your folder, you'll notice that not only do we have the 23-24 CVS summary fact sheet, it also includes a little bit about CVS, as well as our component districts, information about CVS BOCES as a whole, as well as on the back sheet, a summary of all the programs and services which are available through CVS. This information is also on our website. Next, you'll have a speed sheet for the CV Tech program. This information is on the website. Each one of these program areas, if you would go online and check on the website and click on those programs, it will bring up all the information needed about each one of our CV Tech programs, as well as all of the possibilities and the program opportunities that are available for your students. Third, you do have a summary sheet as well about the RISE Center for Success. Again, that was part of our rebranding. And you'll notice that not only the RISE logo, it's also tied into the Phoenix. So it's a way to really support our students, as well as the imagery behind it. And you can see the availability of the various programs that were listed on the summary sheet, but also more information as well. And there's an additional handout about the specifics. And I know, Mr. Moran, you're very familiar with these and your team, and we appreciate your work and support with us on these services. So I will be happy to answer any additional questions when Mrs. Campbell is completed. But at this point, I'd like to now turn the floor over to Mrs. Campbell. And I'm sure everyone from your district and your staff know Mrs. Campbell. She was a teacher in your district for over 10 years. And then was over 10 years, and then was a building principal, your middle school principal, for 6 years. She then was the director of curriculum and instruction for Peru before joining us as our assistant superintendent for educational services. She's doing an amazing job in that role. She's a highly respected leader. Her skill and knowledge benefits her students. It benefits all the students in the region. It also benefits our administrators and our staff at the highest levels. So it's my privilege to also welcome to join me at the podium, and Mrs. Amy Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I would be remiss if I didn't say how wonderful it is to be here, and it's a privilege to be here tonight in my current role. But Beekmantown is my home. It's my home district. It's the place I spent the most years in my own education as an educator. And it's the place that my daughter found her voice and successfully graduated and is doing amazing things now in her first year in college. So I appreciate so much the work that you've done here and the opportunities that you've provided for her. Tonight, though, I'm here to talk about our School Support Services Division. It's one of my responsibilities is to lead that division, and the name says it all. We exist to support and serve our component districts. Unlike my colleague, Director Friedman, who was here last year and had students and got to talk about the amazing things that we do in CV Tech, you probably don't hear much about us because we're in the background. We're making the things work that the teachers and the administrators and your staff need to provide those exemplary educational opportunities. And we do it at a high quality with aidability so that we can support you in everything that you need. Beekmantown participates in 11 coasters, including our communications, library media services, school improvement, interscholastic athletics, transportation professional development, and staff development for clerical, health, safety, risk management, emergency FM communications, and our model schools program. There's so much that I could say about so many of those, but you have the materials in front of you if you'd like to know more, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Just a couple of things I'd like to share with you. Communications is a new add-on with interim superintendent Mr. Besson, and you jumped right in, and I believe you're having a great time with our staff member, Olivia. That you have an embedded communication specialist 1 day a week, and I know she's enjoying coming here and talking to people and interviewing people and coming up with ideas and supporting how you can tell your story and the great things that are happening here at Beekmantown. So we're really excited that she's here and doing that. I also want to thank you for the leadership that your administrators provide and your staff in helping our entire region to grow. As I said, we provide support and services, and that's at the request of our districts. And your teacher, Carrie Beatty, who's also the mentor program coordinator, reached out to us last year and said, you know, we'd really like to help our new teachers, and we'd like to kind of open it up to the region. And so as a result, over 2 years, we've developed a new teacher workshop program. It's 4 days throughout the year with a continuing support during. And that really is because she reached out and said, how can we do this together? And it's been wonderful. And this year from the region, not just Beekmantown, but from the region, we have over 40 staff, 40 new teachers that are participating in that. So those are just some of the things that we are doing in conjunction with Beekmantown. And thank you so much for having me here tonight. And thank you to all of the people that I see in the audience that I know and love.
Questions?
No, but we're very excited to have Olivia here. She's worked through it today, and I'm sure some of the things you'll be going over in a few seconds are being done with Olivia's help.
Absolutely, and I just want to acknowledge as well, Mrs. Campbell not only supports our school support services, but she's also a recognized leader throughout the region. One of our newest organizations that's now has a strong presence in the North Country is NYSAWA, which is the New York State Association of Women Administrators. She and one of our colleagues from FEH BOCES have helped establish the chapter here in the North Country, and they've had fantastic events as well as a strong presence, and we urge Beekmantown to join if you're not already members. Again, it's the recognition and support for women administrators who, when you look at the gender equity within schools across New York State, females make up almost 70% of the staff in schools. There's a much lower percentage of administrators or even superintendents who make up the field. So it's really important to support our women administrators in the region, and Mrs. Campbell is a recognized leader not only in curriculum and instruction, but also helping work with our chief school officers and at a high level across the region with our principals as well as our staff. So it's important to just acknowledge and really recognize her for her wonderful leadership.
And Dr. Davey, before you start, I'd also, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank Mrs. Campbell for hosting us a few weeks ago for our board retreat. It was a great evening for us. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
I got to move again.
Okay, so without any further ado, I want to thank the Beekmantown Board of Education for allowing me this evening to provide an update on your superintendent search process. I know that we have had the opportunity to work with the board. You also are working with Miss Olivia, our communications person, who's doing an outstanding job in working with your district and our entire communications department. Mr. Besson, you've been really helpful as well, and also Ms. McDonald has been very supportive as well, so we're appreciative of our work and working together. So as we, let's see here. Okay. All right, so this evening is really an opportunity to present an update to the board and your school community, including all of the attendees. We are thrilled and honored to be able to share some pictures that have been taken by the communications department that highlight Beekmantown, as well as will be used or have the opportunity to be used in some of your publications and communication efforts regarding your superintendent search, and for many other areas as well. You'll notice as you look at the Eagle Pride slide, we're looking at 2 sectional championships there. Congratulations to Beekmantown and your athletes. So students, excellent job to our athletes as well as to all the staff and your school community. So it's an opportunity to not only celebrate your district, but again, as you're undertaking the superintendent search process, this again is an opportunity to celebrate your district, but also recognize the opportunity to help advertise your district as well as to invite highly qualified candidates to apply. For the presentation outline, really just an overview as the district superintendent of my role in working with the district as well as our team. And for the board members, you'll also notice Mrs. Julie Jolliker, my confidential secretary, is here as well. So I want to thank her and recognize her for her assistance. She works very closely with you and really the entire process. So and the board has had the opportunity to work with her as well during our conversations. With that said, we'll also provide an update about the superintendent search process, what is underway, and then also the talking points as we're moving forward. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, and you'll also note, and this is an overview since some of the attendees in the audience may not be familiar with the role of the district superintendent. As the district superintendent, I work with all 16 component districts, and one of the roles that I serve is to work with our component districts and be available to help the superintendent searches. There's no charge for the district for my participation, and it is an opportunity for me to work closely with our component boards of education, and also provide lots of assistance during the process. And again, it's an opportunity for me to work with our component districts and help identify highly qualified candidates, to help vet them, and then bring them forward to the board and your school community throughout the interview process. It is something that I very much appreciate and look forward to continuing to work with the Beekmantown Board of Education and school community. So when you hit the high points, you'll notice that my role as district superintendent is to support the superintendent search process. We have worked with the board to determine the search parameters. We've also identified and created a superintendent search timeline. We'll have a brief overview a little bit later in the presentation. There is a survey qualification, a superintendent qualification survey development that's underway. Mr. Besson, we are working right now, and we're meeting with Thought Exchange as well as integrating a superintendent selection survey that is scheduled, is planned to go out in the immediate future before Thanksgiving break. So there will be a brief update about that as well. Again, helping to confirm the selection criteria. We worked with our communications department and at the board's direction to help with the position advertisements. As district superintendent, I also work very closely with the board to help identify qualified candidates and also with recruitment. As the board and we have discussed, there's already information and there's a general understanding in the field, in the region, and throughout the state that Beekmantown will be looking for a new superintendent. So I have had individuals from across the state contact me and ask me about the timeline. So I believe there will be a considerable amount of interest in your position, and I look forward to bringing forth candidates as part of the process. You'll also notice as well that with the board, I will not only help provide confidential candidate reviews, as well as really in-depth conversations about each candidate, and we will assist and our team, Mrs. Jollifer and myself, as well as our cabinet team, can assist with helping support the interview process. And finally, as district superintendent, I also work with the board in some of the final selection process and helping coordinate that with our team. Okay. Next slide. The district superintendent in my role, not only have we already discussed the decision-making process and define our role, but we have identified a process as well for the board to identify how we can gather feedback from your community stakeholders, your staff, your students, as well as surveys and forums as desired. And we will also have a variety of stakeholder committees as part of the superintendent search process. That is something that the board has been very strong in supporting and believe that it is important for your stakeholder committees and your stakeholders from across the district to be actively involved in this process and to weigh in on the selection process. You'll also notice as well that we will work with the district to identify various members of the stakeholder committees, and that includes staff, students, parents, community members, and your administrative and support staff. The board has made it very clear that it is important to have a widespread selection process and committee involvement in this process. So where are we now? With the board's support and with your team's support, our communication department is actively underway in the development of a superintendent search video. This video will actually be able to be served to be utilized as an advertisement and really a celebration of the Beekmantown Central School District. As seen on the first slide, you've got a great You have an amazing district, a great district, and a lot to celebrate. And it's an opportunity for your stakeholders, your key leaders across your district, as well as your students and staff, to weigh in and to actually be part of the testimonials and the footage for the district. We are also working with our communications department in the district to update the website and social media with Eagle success. The brochure and community postcard notifications are currently being designed with the support of our communications department. The advertisements that we have reviewed are available and ready to go out, but again, having the brochure, the postcards, and the designated social media updates in the website will be an important process as the search proceeds. And lastly, and Mr. Besson, I want to thank you for your support as well. We have been working with Thought Exchange, and I know your administrative team is familiar with that process as well. And we are integrating a superintendent's search survey to be able to infuse those two opportunities that can be widespread across your district. Now, Mr. Besson, you are right up here. So we have discussed and are planning for this, the Thought Exchange and the survey to be available before Thanksgiving, and then to go to, I believe, at the end of the first.
Yeah, and we just received our beta run today. So the traditional surveys online, the Thought Exchange online, it's right now internal. We're just trying it out. None of the data we put in accounts. And then we're going to work with Thought Exchange to tie the two together. Worked with Olivia, there'll be a QR code put out, a postcard mailed to everybody in the community to go on Thought Exchange. We're also doing some posters to put in areas that, like churches, libraries, whatever, for people who aren't on the internet, so they can come in and do a physical one and give one to Chelsea, and then we'll figure a way to get it integrated. And the other thing about Thought Exchange, which is a little different, we're trying to figure a way to teach people that once you go into Thought Exchange, you build yourself like a little account. It stays private, but you could go back in every so many hours, every so many days before it closes, and you can see what other people put down. So maybe I put 5 things down that I thought were important, and there wasn't much on there, but all of a sudden I go on 3 days later, and I like other people's ideas better. I could start ranking them as compared to mine, and then that creates a cloud that creates a bubble that'll identify some of the characteristics and skills that we're hoping the next superintendent has when they come to Beekmantown. So we can highlight them, and then you'll be integrating those into the brochure, and then we'll go live and great things will happen.
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Besson, and I want to thank you and your team for helping work with Thought Exchange. I know we've had several meetings, or we've had a meeting with Thought Exchange, and I know we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes with them now. So with that said, we'll move forward. A few other updates as well. Here are some of the amazing things that are being highlighted in the video. Information about the Beekmantown resources that are available, your teacher and student connections, as well as the outstanding educational opportunities that are available. An overview of the superintendent search timeline. So the Thought Exchange and survey will be being released in the immediate future, and will actually go, I believe, Mr. Besson, I believe it's approximately 10 to 12 business days, so about 2.5 weeks it'll be available, which your staff, students, and community can weigh in, and then weigh the opinions that are there as well. It's an unbelievable opportunity to gather authentic feedback from your school community, and then be able to utilize that in the finalization of your brochures. You'll notice that the advertisements will begin mid-December, with the applications being due on the 16th of February. We will then review and vet with the board the applications that do come in. We will then, with the first round scheduled on the 18th and 19th of March, with then the second round, either the 8th and the 9th, or the 15th and 16th of 2024. Those will include your stakeholder committees, as well as another interview with the board. And then there's a third round and site visit scheduled for the 22nd or 23rd of April. The desired hire date and appointment would be, at this time, is slated for May of 2024. With a start date, with your start date slated for July 1st of 2024 for your new superintendent. Again, the opportunities and the resources that are available. It's a wonderful opportunity to highlight the best and the most exciting things about your district, the resources, the student and teacher connections, as well as the educational opportunities that are available. And lastly, the board is familiar with this timeline. It provides really a detailed overview and summary. It's hard for, I know, everyone to see, but I will share with you that as we look at the advertisements review, this is the process that's really articulated in that detailed summary. Was the creation of the search brochure and the position, the advertisements both regionally, statewide, and nationally to attract qualified candidates, a distribution of the advertisements electronically with our chief school officers, with throughout all the BOCES across the state. I will also be reaching out and contacting search consultants, as well as speaking with individuals who may be interested or have expressed interest already, and also looking at really maximizing the availability of the website, social media, and the other electronic resources available. When we consider the search advertisements, the district will be participating through our BOCES in the New York State Daily Impact ads. That's 55 papers across the entire state. It includes the Albany Times-Union, the Syracuse Herald-American, the Binghamton paper, the Buffalo paper. So it completely covers the entire state, including the Press Republican and the Glens Falls Post-Star and the Albany Times-Union. You also notice that we do have the NISBA, that's the New York State School Boards Association. It will be an electronic enhanced package, which is included in our advertisements. The New York State Councilgram is the New York State Council of School Superintendents, probably the most highly respected and widely advertised superintendent job posting network in the entire country. We also have the SANES, that's the School Administrators Association of New York State Association, and their website as well. The Rural Schools Association, as part of the RSA inclusion. Currently, there's 312 schools across the state as of last week that are part of the Rural Schools Association. Education Week is considered the nation's education newspaper. It's a weekly publication, and the board has made it very clear that she would like to have a thorough and widespread advertisement, including a national footprint. So the Beekmantown superintendent ad will be part of the Education Week online and in print. The association, American Association of School Administrators, known as AASA, also has a nationwide electronic job site for superintendent openings. And lastly, as mentioned again, the district superintendents across the state, there are 37 district superintendents. I'm one of them, so 36 other district superintendents. Your advertisement will be sent electronically to them, and then they get distributed to the other superintendents across the state. There's over 700 superintendents across the state that will receive that through the electronic system. We also advertise it through all of our assistant superintendents, our directors of special education, career and technical directors as well. So Mrs. Campbell, Mrs. Friedman, Mr. Slattery also are part of my team who will help distribute your advertisements, including our regional superintendents and our chief school officers from throughout our region. So that really concludes an overview of my presentation, really to not only update the board, which you're aware that this has been underway. Kudos to Mr. Besson and the Beekmantown team. We've been working very closely with our communications staff, both in video and the development of the brochures and pictures. And lastly, just an opportunity to say thank you for the opportunity for Beekmantown to work with CBS on this important process. Lastly, we do have a video. And we say, on behalf of your students, we thank you for your allowing us to be part of this important process. So, any questions, Vice President? I have none. Board members, any questions? I think we're good. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And I do appreciate the technical support as well. Thank you.
We're going to need a motion to amend the agenda, correct? When we get over here.
Yes, so I already added it to the board quota.
Okay.
So we just need to add the audit and have a motion to add the audit committee meetings, and then they'll approve it all.
That's what I thought. Thank you. We ready? Okay. Next time on the agenda is reports, starting with Interim Superintendent of Schools, Mark Bessa.
Yeah, so let me start with a question. Tomorrow night is one of the area school board meetings. What do you call it up here?
The local school board association presentation is at our conference center. It's an interim presentation.
Right. So I don't know if any of you have gone to those before.
Dr. Rick Tim.
But you do have Dr. Rick Tim, and he's a great speaker. And for those of you who know, his insight of how state budgeting works, how the formulas work, and everything else. For those who have never seen him before, it's an amazing presentation to see, and it will really help you getting into the budget cycle. So if any of you want to go tomorrow night, please let Chelsea know. I'll go too tomorrow night. But if there's anybody interested right now, we could sign you up. So tomorrow you get dinner, you see Rick Timms, and believe me, he's not bad. He's funny. He'll keep it live. So.
Yeah, he does a great job of making budgets and math fun.
Yeah.
He is good.
And you'll learn all about his granddaughter, Gracie, and how she spends her money. All right. Patty will go? All right.
Thank you.
We'll both sign up. Any of the others, think about it. If unless you're watching, well, we don't have Wednesday night football, so you probably all go up. So.
And you're going?
Yeah, I'm going too. Yeah. All right. So, speaking of money, we recently had a technical assistant visit from the State Education Department concerning our ELT grant. We've had the ELT grant for approximately 10 years, and no one ever came in to see what we were doing. They just read our amazing reports. And the lady who came in basically read what we wrote and then viewed what we do, and she has a few adjustments that we need to make. So we're going to be working on those things. Nick is our lead administrator on it, and he sat with Michelle for probably 10 hours that day, maybe more. And we had Scott and Keith, I guess they came to the final meeting to hear some of the things Michelle said. So we're trying to adjust to what Michelle said. We'll be working with the association on it, and if we could do some of the things that she suggested so we can move forward, that would be great. If we can't make the tweaks, the whole grant is at risk. So that's your ELT, that's your extended hour, that's BAS, that's summer school, that's ELT trips.
What do you mean by tweaks?
Well, there's time tweaks she needs. She needs to, Nick can jump in. She wants to see our high school look and middle school look a little bit more the elementary school with a specific BAS period. She wants to see some time extensions on it. because according to the grant, we said that we extended our school day for like 25%. And when she does the math of our original school day, it doesn't add up to 25%. So let's say at the secondary level, we only added 5 minutes to 9 periods. They came to like 45 minutes. And it's embedded in a period. They need to see something different and separate from the regular school day. So we'll talk to the association about that. We need to add time to the elementary day. They're short by about 40 minutes. So she wants to see them last 10 minutes longer. Some of our programs, she's working to count them, like even things like our fitness center, where our fitness center, because it's open to all, that it counts for some percentage, so we might have to start taking attendance there so we can get a reward account to show those hours and get them added in. What she does like is the field trips for all, like an entire grade level goes to a field trip. Some of the things that are questionable are some of our field trips that maybe only take 20 kids and what types of field trips they are for educational value. So she worked hard with Nick. Nick's synthesizing it all. We'll be meeting with the people we need to meet with. We can make the adjustments. I think the big thing is to make some of those changes moving forward. We're not going to be perfect, but every time you take a little bite out of it and move it forward, we're better off. And then there's some paperwork changes we have to do too with our grant writing.
So you said we're 10 minutes shy on elementary school. She wants to see it extended 10 minutes?
10 minutes a day, yeah.
What are we shy middle school and high school?
Middle school and high school, we're short. What would you say, Nick?
Per the letter of the law, what we proposed in 13-14, secondary is short 55 minutes per day. So she's working with us to try to see if there's various formulas should be used that, for example, we have our learning center as part of the grant. It's available to all students, but per the letter of the law, it's supposed to impact every student. So we may have to have a system where we track attendance using student IDs, and there's a formula. So say 20% of our students utilize the learning center, maybe the hour of the learning center, there's some prorated amount that can go to our baseline total hours. So we're not looking to tell us we need to expand secondary by 55 minutes today. We're saying we would like to see a little bit more time. As Mr. Besson said, she does need to see distinct ELT programming at the secondary level, similar to the way elementary schools have a dedicated basically ELT section, call it as. She needs to see something similar at the secondary level.
So this was an audit, correct?
So this is what they call a technical assistance visit. It's before the audit. So they come in and they give us a runaround like an audit, but they don't write it up, because if they write it up and we don't make changes, we're dead in the water. So what they want to do is see us make the changes. Then when they come back in on the audit, they're going to be like, okay, we know you made changes. What the state's very much afraid of right now is the controller's office is more or less indicating that they're going to make an audit of this program with the state education department. And what happens is the state education department never gave us a technical assistant visit or an audit. So they're coming in to cover their technical assistant visit and say, yep, we've been to Beekmantown. And this is what we found at Beekmantown. And since we've been to Beekmantown, they made the adjustments that we more or less inferred, but they're really recommended. She may not come back again for 2-3 years until she does an audit. But I found her to be more of someone user-friendly that's actually trying to help us rather than crush us.
Yes, she wants us to be in the best position possible. So if her office receives an audit from an public office, that they can pass the audit, meaning we can pass an audit saying that we're appropriating ELT funding for the state legislature and for our proposal.
Yeah.
Did they give you an opportunity to write an improvement plan, submit it, have it approved, anything like that?
Well, that's what we're doing. We're coming up with
It's not an audit. That's
right. But there's things that she needs to see changed in our next grant.
Got it.
So the next grant is the improvement plan, where it says that we're having a specific thing at the time for our BAS is from this time to that time. You know, we were able to, like I said, there are things we started coming up with Like, for example, we were budgeting summer success, what is it called, summer?
Summer Bridge.
Summer Bridge. We were budgeting it out of the ESSER funds. Or ARP, or one of those guys. So anyways, next summer would have been the last summer for it. And even though we budgeted for it that way, she requested that we pay for it out of the monies that we're talking about.
Okay.
That way we get more credit for more hours for more kids. So, Jen and I, she's budgeted for it, and we might lose some of that art money by not using it, but the art money goes away after the summer of 24. This ELT money we're hoping goes on and on for as long as, it's a worthwhile cause here at Beekmantown. So it's like better to lose something you're going to lose anyway than losing the big prize down the road. So we're going to move our summer success into ELT money. That way we have X amount of kids who've put in X amount of hours, and then we start calculating them in as these students received X amount. So that goes towards our 25%. And that's what she was working on creatively with Nick. So it's just saying, you guys will never make it. You're done. We're giving our money to Yonkers and New York City. She said, guys, try these things, and I think you'll get through. Got it.
Any other questions?
The other thing that's going to be good is she's going to be looking out for us a little bit, where we're going to know if that money's really there by April 1st. So as soon as the state budget is passed, she knows the line code to look for in the state budget, and she's going to call us and say, it's been refunded. So that way we know that as we're working forward, we're not wasting our time. Or at that point, she might say to us, guys, you're dead in the water, and not just us, but everyone. Because you got to remember that if you go see Rick Timms tomorrow, he's going to be giving you some information of what's coming up in the state budget. Those 6 blocks in Lower Manhattan didn't make as much as they thought they would, and that really funds most of the state of New York.
Well, that's cheery news.
I know. I know that. You know that the funny part is they're short their anticipated money. I mean, they still get money, and I don't know how much on their anticipated money. The state does different things. It's one thing when they audit you. It's another thing if you think about auditing them.
Thank you. Anything else?
No. Good.
Okay.
Oh no, yeah. My report. So technical assistant. Jen and I have been working on the building project. The PA system is already being put in at Cumberland Head. I'm going to also be working with Day Automation on what they call an auto call system, and along with Gary. And what we're doing is making sure that if any button is pushed, specifically the code goes out for a lockdown, that simultaneously the call goes to 911 with the proper codes. So there's a tie in there, a little card that has to be put in. And they're going to start coming over probably around December to start this campus. Is it December or January now?
Yeah.
Okay, January. So they should be finishing up there. But we do have to have a meeting with our principals in this building to make sure that the zones that we put in work. Last week, I did have the opportunity. The music department did a fantastic job. I got to go to the mega concert. The mega carts is really neat because you get to see all of the bands and all of the choruses, and so you get to see the poor little band teacher who struggles with those kids that don't even know how to hold an instrument, and they barely know how to put out a sound, and you think you're at you're in the corner listening to a revival of some sort. But then the next thing you know, they finish with the senior band, which just blows you away even though they're in a gym. So the mega concert was well attended, well enjoyed. People left happy. And for everyone that's here next week, happy Thanksgiving, and you all deserve a little time. So that's it for the superintendent's report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Jen Parliament, Business Manager.
Tax collection is completed. Yay. I just want to let you know, we'll be sending off these reports tomorrow to the county for them to make a whole. I always report what we're owed. It's normally around the 5% mark. I collected for Altona, Beekmantown, Shazy. We are owed $419,888, which is right around the 5% mark. So the county will make us whole on that. Jackie Blue collects for the town of Plattsburgh. We are still owed $553,385. Again, these reports go to the county tomorrow. They make us whole in the next few months. But I do like you guys to know this is very typical. Nothing was abnormal with the taxes this year. That's a good thing. New transportation supervisor is to be appointed tonight. You started out here as a bus driver. He is our auto mechanic at the moment. Tomorrow, hopefully, he'll be our transportation supervisor. He will be provisional. There is an exam that has to be given. So we'll be appointing him as provisional until the exam, which I believe is in December. So we wish him much luck and for him to get started. I also was going to, the capital project stuff, the PA stuff is in full swing at Cumberland Head. They started full wire this week. It's going to go fairly quickly. We also have met about the rest of the capital project. The playground committee has met with Beekmantown Elementary to get that process underway as well. We're meeting approximately once a month just to go over where we're at. State Ed still has not approved. We still don't have final approval yet from the state for that. But I would assume it's going to be done fairly shortly. We're hoping to go out to bid in January or February, at the latest February. I think that is, if anyone's heard the milk cardboard shortage issue from your kids at home, we did talk about this at audit committee a little bit. There are no milk cartons available right now. It's the strangest thing, I have no idea, but we're making do with gallons, and we have, in the elementaries, we're doing cups with covers, and our monitors are helping pour that and hand it out to the kids at tables. And in the middle school and high school, we have dispensers that kids are pouring themselves through the line. So we're making do so far. They are telling us that it's going to go through to 2024. I don't know when. You can't make this stuff up. So, so we're just dealing with it and rolling with the punches at this point and doing the best we can. So that's about it.
Any questions from Mrs. Parliament? Thank you. Little change in format tonight. Mr. Besson has asked each of the principals to share briefly about what's going on in their buildings. Mr. Bazzaio for the high school.
Good evening, everybody. I first want to commend our public speakers tonight and their presentations for allowing you to great job, everybody. I also want to commend Ms. Lonable for the hard work she does put on and modeling line. It's a lot of work. She does a phenomenal job on it, so thank you for all the hard work you put in. Just want to highlight a couple of collective efforts that have happened in the last month here in the high school. These things don't happen just individually, they happen in collective effort from everybody in the school community, particularly our teachers, our administrative team, our health, our nurses, our secretaries, everybody in the building really made this work. So two of the things I'm going to really look at today is the first quarter report cards came out November 3rd. I just want to highlight some of the numbers that we had for some of the students at the achievement levels. We had 115 students attain high honor roll with distinction. What that means is they had a 95 or higher GPA average for the first quarter. We had 118 students attain high honor roll, so that's students that had 90 or above averages for the first quarter. And finally, we had 128 students have honor roll, that's 85 or higher. So that's a collective effort of 361 students receiving honor roll or having an 85 or higher in our building. So that's 63% of our students receiving honor roll of some sort for the first quarter. Like I said when I started, that's to highlight the hard work that goes into our building every single day with our educators, our students at a high level. That's a lot of students having success in our building. So that's a huge commitment by everybody every single day. So awesome work by everybody there. Additionally, we've been working hard to ensure that our college credit final enrollments are in. So this is the final week that we're really working on that. Just to give everybody an idea, we have 32 college credit opportunities in the high school currently. We have 695 separate registrations within those opportunities in an enrollment of under 600 students. So that's a pretty impressive number overall of the college opportunities that happen in our building. Once again, that doesn't happen just in isolation. It happens with everybody in our building. To break that down a little bit for the board and everybody here tonight, we have 16 total college credits through Paul Smith College. There's 281 students that are enrolled in those college courses through Paul Smith's. We have 6 total college credits through Clinton Community College, with 121 separate registrations of students enrolled in those 6 college courses. We have 10 advanced placement courses with 215 separate registrations to take the AP exams in May. So we also have 2 college credit courses through Syracuse University that have 78 students enrolled in those courses. So when you really look at that number, that's 695 separate enrollments in college courses. They are going to get college credit in our building. So that's a pretty impressive number. Once again, to put in that perspective, it takes a lot of work to get those colleges to have those partnerships. Our teachers have to enroll, they have to put their transcripts out there, they have to enroll through these colleges to get those credentials for our students. Our students have to have the level to be successful in those classes, and they also have to have the rigor in those classes to be able to be successful. So that just tells you quite a bit about that. I even had a student at the football game 2 weeks ago. I was talking to, he was a graduate last year. He went to Albany with 38 college credits. He is starting as a sophomore, leaving our building as a senior last year. So that's impressive by the camaraderie of what we have in our building every single day. The kids can walk out of the building as a senior with 38 college credits. Almost unheard of. So those are some of the really good things that I want to highlight tonight that are going on in the high school. And like I said, that's a collective effort by everybody in the building. So thank you everybody for all the hard work.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So the 63% that were on the honor roll,
yeah.
That includes the college credits that they're taking.
Yes.
So that puts it even higher.
Right. Yeah, more rigorous coursework, and you could talk about higher level syllabuses and things like that. So yeah, it would be possibly higher with lower coursework. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson for the middle school.
Good evening, everyone. I need these now, so I apologize. You'll see from my update this evening that BMS we strive to help the whole child at Beekmantown Middle School. So you're going to see a little bit of an academic focus and a focus on social well-being of our students. So let me first begin with something we are very proud of. For the 4th year in a row, BMS has earned the CFES Brilliant Pathways School of Distinction designation. Achievement as a school of distinction is testimony that Beekmantown Middle School has developed and executed an exemplary plan to ensure that our students are college and career ready. Some of the programs that were recognized that we offer at Beekmantown Middle School is our Mentor program, the Harvard Young Leadership program that we offered this past summer here, Robotics Club, participation in the First LEGO League, our weekly advisory activities facilitated by CFES fellows, and our regional college visits, for instance, to SUNY Plattsburgh and Champlain College. So we're very excited about this. The banner should be arriving this week. The middle school drama production happened this past month. The musical Princess What's Her Name was a huge success. There were about 59 middle school students that served as actors and crew members, and approximately 487 community members attended the show. I would like to thank Mrs. Hamilton, Mrs. Burnett, and Mrs. Poyer for all their hard work, and the various parents that volunteered their time to ensure that the students had a positive experience and put on a phenomenal show. This past month, we had our first BMS Eagle Pride Day. This is facilitated in partnership with leaders from Champlain Valley Family Center. Each quarter, there is a underlying theme for these days that ties to the BCSD mission to educate every individual to be a quality contributor to society and self. This quarter, for group activities and discussions, students answered the question, how do we fit together at BMS? Throughout the day, the facilitators and teachers facilitated team building activities focusing on strengthening student communication, collaboration, and problem-solving skills. Students then reflected on how their differences with regards to their talents, strengths, and skills contribute to the overall success and culture of the whole. So that was the hymn. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Ms. Barkham for Beekmantown Elementary School. She's
Mrs. Crew.
who's from?
Mrs. Barbara could not be here tonight,
Okay.
so is it okay if I do read the pronounces?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So is
Mrs. Cruz, associate principal. 3 major things to highlight from BES for this particular month. Most of them thematically come from, we're really working on relationship development right now in the building and with some of our partners. So we have a partnership with Ready for Real through BTS. We have 2 individuals who have applied, interviewed, and are working in the elementary school on a regular basis. We have a 10th grader, for example, who's working with Mrs. Eilers and Mrs. Kapoor every day. They're doing a great job with that. We have a postgraduate who's working in the pre-K3 classroom. 3 days a week and is doing a great job there. The partnership is pretty advantageous for all of the people that do participate, so it's been awesome to see grow in the last couple of weeks. The teachers receive an extra set of hands in their classroom, which is really helpful right now as well, and it really helps develop the relationships and the connections with more people and some older students, kind of mentor-esque as well. Another one is we have worked with Principal Pisario, who has sent us some folks from the high school student council. They come down to our building and just spend some time with some students. They do some lunch groups, they go out with recess, just spend some time with them. And the students are really, really loving that experience a lot too. So the other item that just to highlight is from our fabulous PTO. We really do have a great PTO. So they coordinated our trunk or treat at the end of October. And we had a lot of participants there. We had a total of 720 kids come through. So a big community turnout. Pretty impressive. I don't know how anyone plans for that many people and how much candy to buy. So it's pretty impressive. They did a really great job. It was great to see the kids, their costumes, very excited. And they also did, and we are continuing donuts with grown-ups as well, which has been pretty well attended for the community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And finally, Ms. Stoutinger from Cumberland Head Elementary.
Good evening. I chose to highlight a couple of activities at Cumberland Head along the same lines as BES. Our PTO is also amazing, and I will tell you how many pieces of candy it takes to run trick-or-treat. So the latest event was our 3rd annual trunk or treat. It was a huge hit. We had over 26 trunks decorated for students to trick or treat at. Volunteers who set up a trunk did not have to worry about purchasing candy because our PTO was very creative and they made a contest for our school. So whatever classroom collected the most candy got a pizza party. So there were over 28,000 pieces of candy donated. I don't know whose job it was to count all that candy, but they did that. The winners of our candy contest were Mr. Brandt and Ms. Bowers' 4th grade classroom, and also our tie with Ms. Ogle and Mrs. Gay's pre-K4 classroom. The PTO also partnered with our Elmore SPCA and asked the CHES families to donate shoes at their event, and there were over 120 pairs of shoes donated. So again, we thank our PTO for bringing us together as a community and doing something worthwhile for our SPCA. Next, on November 6th, teachers in grades 3 through 5 were given time with our district level testing and data coordinator, Mary Swanson, to look over last year's state testing data. So of course the teachers like to see how their individual students did from the previous year, but they're also given the reports so they can see the trends in their testing. The report is 8% correct per skill, so teachers can see if there might be some holes in the curriculum or where our students are doing exceptionally well at. And so that knowledge will help them shape their instruction going forward. And it was a productive meeting and one that we hope to dig deeper in and continue those conversations a little bit more. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and finally we have Ozzy Comer from the student perspective.
I just want to start out with this is a slight differentiation with we usually do, but I was able to work with all of the principals from every school to get more of a student voice in this presentation and have an actual conversation. I had conversations with either representatives or students from every school, group conversations with a lot of the schools as well, which were really, really nice and productive, and it really gave the students a lot of excitement to participate in this, but also gave me a better insight of what to talk about, what should be presented, and really just one or two outstanding things that the students would want to highlight from the student bodies themselves. So starting off from Cumberland Head, students and representatives highlighted especially their Spirit Week, which surrounded the Halloween season. Many students participated, and the turnout on all the days were pretty high, and a lot of students enjoyed a lot of the days that were given out to do, and it was really enjoyable experience for many of them, and they had a lot of fun with being able to participate with their friends and participate just with staff and teachers as well. For Beekmantown Elementary School, the conversation I had with their students brought up a lot. I'm not gonna lie. There was so much they had to talk about and so much they wanted to say that was just great things. One thing that they kept talking about is all these fun events that were happening around the school, like the trunk or treat. They brought that up multiple times, and just how it was just so fun, and it really it made their whole season of Halloween just better in a lot of ways, and how it's just really nice for them. They also brought up a lot of activities they get to do surrounding their Eagle Pride assemblies. All of the students I talked to from elementary school had their own anecdotes and stories of just really cool stuff they got to do, how they worked, participate in the assemblies in their own way, and how it was just a blast for them to participate in these assemblies and everything surrounding it as well. For the Beekmantown Middle School, I was able to talk to student council and other students as well from the middle school, and they brought up how they loved events like the dances they were able to put on. They said they had great turnout, it had great participation. It's just overall a really fun experience, and they were really happy that they were able to do it, and they're really excited to do more of them continuing in the year. And the middle schoolers also brought up how they enjoyed their pep rally, similar to the BES students. They really just enjoy these assemblies where they get to interact with students and teachers and have just a ton of fun. The middle schoolers all were able to participate since they were in student council, directing the assembly, and they all had just so much fun. They all kept telling me stories the whole time during the conversation. It was just how much they liked it. For Beekmantown High School, obviously I have a good amount of insight in this, and a lot of students kept bringing up the fact of the whole community kind of coming together in the school surrounding our sports teams during the championship season, our cross-country football, volleyball, girls soccer, all these championships that were happening, which 3 of them we were actually able to win. Just there was a ton of support from staff, teachers, administrators, students to each other during the whole event, during the whole time, and many people just kept bringing up how not only athletes but just other students were getting excited and had a lot of pride in their school and their extracurriculars, that they're able to accomplish these things, and it was just really good to see teachers congratulating students, students congratulating students, and many students going to these games. The turnout at a volleyball game was great, football game. There's so many people who went to all these kinds of events. And also, students kept bringing up how they had a lot of fun with small Halloween stuff that was happening, and they're really excited for the Christmas event coming up, with many suggesting ideas and getting excited for that whole season. It's a really, really fun time period during the high school. So everybody just kept talking about that whenever that I would bring up something that they felt was outstanding that our school does, so that every high schooler is really excited for the Christmas season, the holiday season coming up. That is all I have for you. Is there any questions?
Sir, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next is committee reports, starting with the safety committee and Mr. Sears.
Okay, on October 13th, we had a committee meeting. We were briefed visually on the walkthrough by Homeland Security. We found out that we're in really good shape, and they were quite pleased with a lot of what was going on within the school. Some of the issues, we don't really get into the particulars of a lot of the things that we see because, Mr. Best has so much knowledge of helping schools with the safety programs and that he will be working with, some of the particulars of this, with local, police and things like that. One of the things that I can talk about is we've got to, just be careful not leaving doors open. I think that's across the board. That's about in any school district that you go to or whatever. But that was probably one of the things that, we talked about that we should be, everybody needs to be aware. It needs to be a joint, process. The PA system, that was already talked about. We had talked about some issues with Raptor. I'm not sure how that has progressed from our meeting. And we talked briefly about reunification drill. It's really not practical to do an actual drill. My gosh, community would go nuts. But with the superintendent, with the administrators, they will go through and make sure that each person, each department knows the rules, knows what to do, and hopefully we'll never have to go through anything like that. So that was pretty much about it. If you want to add anything to it.
Just the thing on the unification drill is it's what they call a practical exercise, where you bring your key people over and you actually go through the drill with, it's just a primary exercise without students is what they call it. And those are the way those things are done. It's no different than back in the day in the Army. We used to have things called reforgers, where only the key personnel would go over to Europe, simulating what bringing the whole military over would look like for World War III. We never physically did it, but we sent all the right people over to know where their bridges were and where their bivouac sites were and all those other things. So that's basically the crux of it. But again, one of the biggest weaknesses that we have that is the most fixable is making sure our doors are locked and closed. Because that was cited, every tour and every building. But just like, you go to any school district and find a door open too. And especially after Uvalde, because that's how they got in. Unlocked doors and doors that were open.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, I guess I'm up next with the policy committee meeting. We had a meeting to discuss the whole pile of updated policies. As Mr. Besson said earlier, the policies were revised due to changes in regulations from the state perspective and getting us in compliance with those new regulations. I do encourage all the board members to thoroughly read through these, and if you think there are things that need to be tweaked a little bit, please get back to Mr. Besson or to Mr. Marin. And same thing with community members. If there's something in there you see that you think we should address, please let us know. We want to get them right. I've already got a list of things that I've found that we need to talk about as we move forward, too.
Yeah, and the other thing about this is what's called the first reading. So nothing gets passed today. The next meeting, you do a second reading. However, if there's things that need to be tweaked, that becomes a new first reading. And then you go back another 30 days. So we went over it, right, Chelsea, went over it. Your first reading, you can never just come and say, hey, guess what? We're passing this policy. It always takes a 30-day pause for people to review. Now, if there's a small change in it, basically where you say, hey, we need to change if to of or some crazy thing like that, you could pass it at your second reading. But if, like, for example, I have a feeling like, I'll tell you right now, our policy handbook is going to get another review. Chances are you're going to be told within the next month, we may not be ready for things. So Chelsea and I are calling our attorney tomorrow to say, do we really need to strike things out? Even our kids understand that we need some parameters. And if we were to put those things in, how much, so therefore we might be bringing the whole handbook back, maybe not even next month or the month after, and going through it with a little bit more patience to understand what we can and can't do and get more people involved. But that's why you get this time for a hearing, 30 days. And things don't necessarily get approved just because it's 30 days later. If there's still work to be done, work needs to be done.
The whole goal is to get it right.
Yep.
And so editorial
It's not to be first, not to be quick, it's get it right.
And so editorial changes may not require another 30 days. Substantive changes, however, do.
Yep.
So Mark, if you would receive no changes or suggestions for changes on any one of the items, you would vote on the next 30 days, or you would be another 30 days beyond that?
It depends. If it's like something small that needed clarification, you could vote in the next 30 days.
Grammatical or typographical or something like
Grammatical, typographical, maybe one thing struck, another thing added. But if all of a sudden it's going to be something substantial, like I have a feeling after we talk to our attorney tomorrow, there's going to be some substantial changes in the student handbook. At least that's going to be what I'm going to ask him for. And if he agrees to it, then that changes the whole process. We got to go back to almost the whole drawing board before it even goes before the policy committee again. So, but this NISBA, their editors struck out a lot, but I think they overstruck. Because you still need some identifiers, things for clarification. I know why they did what they did, but they cleaned it up too much for some of the wrong reasons.
All right, thank you for that.
In my opinion.
Okay. And audit committee, Mrs. Flem?
We had our meeting November 8th. We did a brief overview of the financial reports for the summer foods service programs. The cafeteria provided breakfast and lunch for all the students attending summer school, summer bridge programs, and the summer camp programs run by the town of Beekmantown Youth Commissions. The program ended with a surplus of revenues over expenses in the amount of $8,763. The percentages, there was a percentage increase of 8.3% from last year on all the lunches and breakfasts served throughout the schools. And we did have a discussion on the milk, which was very enlightening, even though we're not sure what we're going to do afterwards. And basically that was it. Anything to add?
No, you did an excellent job.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, next, public comments. If there's anybody who would like to speak to the board in regards to items on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing nobody eager to speak, we'll move ahead. The next item is minutes, and I do have one additional set of minutes that we'll need a motion to add this and change the agenda, but there's also audit committee meeting minutes available. Okay, so can I have somebody with a motion to add that? Patty, and a second?
Second,
Patrick. Questions, comments, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So then, going back to the top. Resolved that the interim superintendent of schools recommends the Board of Education to approve the amended minutes. Need a motion?
Motion.
Okay, I've got Rick on the motion. Second?
Right.
Padraic? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, resolved that the interim superintendent of schools recommends the Board of Education to approve the CSE, CPSE, and 504 recommendations dated 11/14/23. Motion.
Anderson.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolved that the interim superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda, resignations and appointments, be and are hereby approved. Can I have a motion? David. Second?
Anderson.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, wow. Okay, moving on to page 9. Okay, resolved that the interim superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda, 2024-25 budget calendar, revised 2023-24 school calendar, organizational chart and side letter of understanding with support staff in regards to automotive mechanic, be and are hereby approved. Motion. I think I heard Chris. Second? Rick? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Okay.
John,
Yes?
can you just note on there too that the MOA with the administrators was added as well?
MOA with the administrators? Okay. 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 So MOA with administrators. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I think we're over to page 13 now. Resolved that the superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education to approve the following policies. Actually, are we approving? First read. This is the first read. Motion? Dwayne? Second? Chris? Yes.
This is just a first reading.
This is.
John, John,
Yep.
if I have, as understanding how the first reading works, Mark, if I have some language that I wanted to add or otherwise object to anyone inside the policy, this would be the opportunity to do that now, correct? So we would, on the next time we would iterate, we would have that understanding, correct?
Right, so in the first reading, you as the board would have a question about the language, you could change it right now, and you could approve the first reading, the second reading, then
Gotcha.
carries.
Okay.
You can make editorial changes, if there's some changes of substance, you could do those now, because it's the board that sets policy.
Yep.
Even though you have a committee that do work, and they did the work that they were supposed to do, and they're basically reporting back to the whole board what they did. But now that the whole board's here, there's a discussion and something might be changed. And then that's why you have the second reading after 30 days.
Yep.
Sometimes there might be something that if you do make that change, Chelsea and I have to check with legal that change is legit, then I would be getting back to you and saying, sorry, but that change is not legit. We have to go back to whatever, but you'll have a clean policy that everyone knows that they're going to approve by the second reading.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, and you can still vote no. Like say there's something passionate, you try to put it in a policy, the attorney struck you down. It doesn't have to be a 9-0 vote.
Right. I guess my concern was the overall policy itself, even though I sat on the policy. I mean, this isn't exactly one of the agenda items that would die on the hill on, so to speak, but
Right.
I thought it appropriate to address it now before we vote the next time around.
Right.
And I may very well vote no or abstain or otherwise.
Right.
And I think it's applicable, at least in this sense, to have some discussion on it. That'd be appropriate, correct?
Right.
Which policy?
Yeah, if I might, then I'll just take a few seconds. It was the Public Participation Act at board meetings. I know it's probably one of the lesser pieces of context, when we talk about these lists of policies. And I sat in the policy meeting when we discussed this, and we had discussed it a little bit, not really ad nauseum. And it was essentially that right now, as it stands, the public doesn't have the opportunity, or the right rather, to come and speak to the board, at least, again, not to use the word ad nauseum or at will. But nonetheless, I guess for any history teachers in the room, Patrick Henry, right? Guard with jealous attention, the liberty of the public? No? All right. That's meant to be a little bit of a joke. So nonetheless, though, anytime that we place a barrier between the public and their opportunity to speak, legitimacy and transparency, and the opportunity to come here and voice their concerns, I think we have some language here inside of our agenda item every single time that lists out what you can and cannot say. My understanding of the policy, and I welcome all board members to please read it yourself, because I could be very well wrong here. As of now, someone would want to comment to different public comment sessions. They step up and announce what their comment was going to be. They'd have probably some caution as to the language they have in the agenda to not mention maybe students' names or teachers or other private type of information. My understanding of the policy would be that if you would have something to say, you would come, fill out a form of what your issue is, what you want to address, that would then go to the board or someone on the board who would then filter that and decide whether we're going to allow you to speak. That was the issue that I had, was just the form and our ability to, or rather the barrier that we're placing upon the public being able to come and express their concern. My thoughts is afterwards, I was driving home after we met that night, is every time someone comes to me at a sporting event and they say, I got this issue, and it's a hot button issue, and they're upset because it involves one of their children or something happened, my answer has always been, well, come and tell the board. They have this opportunity for you to come and speak. They got these two periods of time. Come in there and voice your concerns. No one ever shows up. But nonetheless, that is always my answer.
Yep.
Now my answer would be, come and see the board, and by the way, when you get there, fill out a form, and we'll decide whether or not we're going to let you come to the podium and say your piece.
The form, if you remember, it's the form accountability. So
Right.
the form comes to the
point.
clerk of the board, and then now it starts a paper trail that we have to respond to the public who brought some comment to us.
Right.
Now, the other part of it is when there's a comment to the board, it's not a discussion. So you got to remember, if you remember in the NISBA training, this is a meeting conducted in public. It's not a public meeting.
Right.
All right? So just like Congress is down there in the well. You could be sitting up in that circular seat while they're arguing a bill or whatever is on the agenda. They don't even have a public comment period, but there are no comments. If you've ever been sitting there for that, I did when I was at Fort Belvoir, and it's very interesting. The campus, Capitol Police, they yank people the minute they sneeze. I mean, it's something else. But anyways, the form is to clean up the way we do our meeting, but it's also to have accountability. So if also we're having a thing and there's 15 forms on the same agenda, to hear the same thing 15 times over ad nauseum is like, hey guys, there's 15 of you here, pick your 3 speakers, go at it. But we're going to respond to all 15 people. If there's something on the agenda that's inappropriate for a public comment, meaning I want to rag on Mrs. Smith, my 4th grade teacher, because my kid didn't get enough candy at trunk or treat. We're going to take that one and we're going to say, we'll get back to you, and we're going to put that one aside so nobody gets embarrassed, even the parent that's gonna make that comment, but we're gonna go and we're gonna make sure that we have a conversation with them so that they know, A, that their comment was there, that it was addressed, and then we have a follow-up on the paperwork that you, the board, knows that the administration did their job. So it's not like somebody comes, makes a comment, walks away, and nothing happens. So that's what that form is for.
And Mark, I understood all that, and I appreciate you voicing that, so everyone else understands maybe the other side of it. Those are fair points.
Right.
I guess my thoughts is, again, not to die on the hill, is I don't want to temper or dampen anybody's ability that wants to come and speak. It takes a lot of courage to go up and speak in public.
Yeah.
And whenever I come here, that's my concern. If there was another mechanism, I welcome that and would want that in a different policy or to replace this policy in order to fix those mechanisms you're talking about. In my short period of time here, I haven't seen anyone come up and say something that's inappropriate or otherwise that we would want to filter at a time. That time's probably going to come, and you're going to wish you had that policy in place so it didn't happen. But nonetheless, I still haven't seen it happen. So I want that mechanism that you just spoke of. I get it 100%, and I agree. At the same time, I don't want to, like I said, dampen anyone's ability to come and speak to this board. That's ultimately who we answer to. I'd like for everyone, if there were more people here tonight, I hope this place was packed every night, where people just want to hear what the community has to say, or maybe hear what some of these teachers have to say. So it's just they're in tune and informed, and I wouldn't want to take that away. That was it. So I ask all of you, when you do read that policy, I think you can probably see which way I'm leaning as to my vote. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter if you pass it. That's fine with me. I'm glad I said my piece.
So
thanks for letting me talk.
As far as the document that you would fill out before you make public comment, that goes to who on the board
It
to
will go
review?
to Chelsea, and then she hands them over to Ed.
So what would be the criteria that would take somebody's public comment and have that public comment not allowed?
Pretty much based on the code, if something is specific about an individual.
Yep.
Which it's right now the same thing. Before we even get into the thing where it starts, like you said, fortunately it hasn't happened. But if it's that one that's specific, I want to talk about Joe Blow because of whatever, that's one that gets put to the side and we'll respond to them appropriately. There's better procedures for that. If it's about anything else, like, hey, I don't like the way the grass is cut, that's fine. Come on in, fill out the form, and then I could follow up with what we're doing to make sure that the weeds aren't in the girls' third baseline on the softball field, that kind of thing. So we're not stopping it, we're just screening to make sure that it's not appropriate. Let's say, for example, you have a situation where let's say we have a snow day, or a day that should have been a snow day, and we end up having to bring kids home by snowmobile. Place is packed. 150 people out there, happening in Hadley, Luzerne. If every single person comes up to scream about the fact that we could be here all night, but we can say, listen, we already know we blew it with the snow day. Can you each pick about 3 speakers so we can conduct our business meeting, do it, and then everybody who fills out a form will get a letter basically saying, you're right, we blew it, we're sorry, but they'll get a documented apology letter because they filled out that form. But we don't need to listen to 150 people talk about, the worst snow day call in the world.
So we would request that they pick 3 speakers, or we would mandate
We
that
would
they pick
request.
3? Okay, so
And the board could still overrule it.
Okay.
You could still sit here, and if a majority, you say, oh no, we want to hear from all 150 of you, you still could do that too. Because even though there's that recommendation of 15 minutes, that's not locked in stone. So for example, for those of you who were maybe unfortunate enough to go to a school district that had the mask crazies during COVID, you could come in and that place would be full of maskless people, let's say, and they probably don't even live, half of them, in your school district because they were traveling around from district to district. So you could have sat there all day and heard about the masks, or you could have said, look, we're going to do 15 minutes, we're going to give X amount of speakers a chance to speak, because you let them do it, because we need to get on with our business. So it gives you guys a little bit more control for have the ebb and flow. So like I said, 150 people complain about the same thing. You don't put some things in writing, you're there all night. 150 people, you want to hear from 100 of them. So I want to do it in Fort Everett. You know, we had the rules. The board said, hey, we're going to hear from more of you. We're not going to cut you off for 15 minutes to talk about something as important as a merger.
I imagine
So
your
there-
experience, you've had a few
Yeah.
comments here and there.
Yeah, so
Of course.
we sat there for an hour listening to comments about why we should or shouldn't merge and watching people scream at each other and everything else.
Yeah.
But, hey, that's what you do. But if it was like a normal situation, we could have said, hey, and the people filled out the forms and we got to everybody. We said, thank you for coming to our meeting. And we gave them some sort of official response, depending on what side they were on, letting them know where they could find more information about the merger, the good, the bad, the ugly. And in the end, when it was time to vote if there would be a merger or not, we never even had the vote because on a 5-4 vote, the board decided not to go ahead with a merger vote. And a lot of that was because of the many nights and hours that we listened to why or why not.
You mentioned a logistical piece, sorry, I won't go on here, is instead of maybe the forms going to 1 or 2 people, I don't know how laborious that is for everyone, to have a quick view of them. I mean, obviously, if there's 150 of them, we're all not going to get 150 sheets, but nonetheless, that way it doesn't reside on a board of 1, it's still a board of 9 that decides who speaks and for
Yeah,
what.
that's just the...
Just thoughts.
You know, sometimes that's where you pick your president, and you might want to look at ways to talk to Ed about it. I know, hopefully he's still there, but technically that's one of the roles that the president of the board plays.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry for quoting Patrick Henry, and there was other, like timeout, physical restraint, attendance, and code of conduct are certainly much more heavier topics than spending so much time on this one. So, nonetheless.
I appreciate your Patrick Henry quote.
Oh, thank you, Patrick.
And I would say one of the things that I think is important to this policy is it holds us accountable for responding to people, because I know there's been questions that have come up that we haven't gotten back in the past, and that's not a good thing. So
It gives me and Chelsea a tracking mechanism exactly to get back to the people. It gives Ed the tracking mechanism, or the president, whoever that may be, to assign whether administration responds or the board responds or a board member responds. Might be a board member that's very interested in something and you say, you know what, I would like to be the board member that takes the lead in this response. And then either works with administration or just with other board members to do the response. But it gives us a tracking mechanism to make sure that we do get back to the public, to make sure that we're taking those comments. You know, it's not only about the screening, it's about the response, and it gives us the thing to respond to the right people. Like I said, those days in Fort Everett, poor Toby Bissett, our district clerk, was cranking out letters left and right to respond to people. And tough being her, but you know, at least we didn't leave anybody unmet with their request or their question. I mean, I had crazy questions about maritime law and the river and how a bridge works to unite 2 school districts. I mean, I never knew about maritime law. I learned.
And from my perspective, one of the policies that I looked over quite in depth was the attendance policy, because it's an issue that every school in the country's trying to figure out the answers to. I would ask that we look over the exhibits that are in that, because the letters don't all line up with each other, and also that they specifically state the letters coming from, I think, the associate principal, but there could be an attendance situation that the principal is dealing with or the dean of students, so some flexibility in that. And I think I would ask if we could have our administrators and the people that work with them all sit down together and fine-tune it. And I don't think there's anything substantive in that, it's just formatted the exhibits. So, any others?
John, I just noticed well the timeout physical restraint, just that most of that is regulation.
Yes.
Correct, Mark, versus policy. So as
Yep.
people read it, I'm not telling you how to read it or otherwise, but be mindful that what you're reading a lot of is regulation versus policy.
Yep.
Essentially step in line in my review opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. So we are voting to approve the first read of the policies as written with potential changes. Okay.
Motion?
I think we have the motion from Dwayne, seconded by Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you all. Financial, resolved that the interim superintendent of schools recommends to the Board of Education that the following resolutions on this consent agenda, financial reports, grants, and transfers, be and are hereby approved. Need a motion?
Motion.
Okay, second? Chris? And this is a roll call vote.
Troy Anderson.
Yes.
Greg Bean.
Yes.
Wayne Vivo. John Fairchild.
Yes.
Christopher Gadway.
Yes.
Patty LaFlemme. Yes. Ed Marin. Richard Sears.
Yes.
David Trudeau.
Yes.
Okay, let's see.
The honorary diploma.
Yeah, so I had sent an email, to know if you guys are all in favor, thank you, Dave, for letting me know, of us doing this.
We just all voted yes.
Where is it? Okay. Oh, and additional item 12, honorary diploma. This is just a discussion. I don't think it's anything we have to take action on.
There's no action that needs to be taken.
What we're looking for is permission, because we can't do it without sort of, it's not an official vote. It's an individual who would have graduated in 1973. The individual got into a car accident, had traumatic brain injury, never got back. I guess their class is doing their reunion, and they would just like to give an honorary diploma. The state gives actual diplomas, let's say, to like veterans that enlisted. That's an official New York State diploma. This is one that's labeled as honorary diploma, Beekmantown School. The lady's still suffering from TBI. The class shared that, she's like someone that they all care about and keep up with. And she lives out of state. She won't even be coming to the reunion, but it would mean a lot to the class of 73 if she was able to receive this from the school district. So unless there's no objection, Chelsea and I will take care of it.
Personally find it a shame that it wasn't done back in 73. And I know why they didn't. But,
I know. I lived through 73, I know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you all for that. Second public comment. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share with us at this point in time? Yes, Ms. Sponwell.
Also a taxpayer too, if that matters. Thank you, Troy, for bringing up the public comment section. Ironically, I'm using public comment to talk about that. I do love the accountability portion. I see where that is very important. And I think that comments should go responded to. So I appreciate that part of the policy. I do want to make sure that, I don't know if I necessarily understand everything because I did not get a chance to read it. But some of the questions I have going forward, if you're looking at this again before the second reading, just take into account when the last time that public comment was here at Beekmantown. That went over the 15 minutes, or the last time that there was a public comment that wasn't appropriate. I've been to several meetings, and every comment I've seen has been positive, but I'm not at every one of them. And would not filling out the form prior to the meeting prevent someone from making a statement? That is my question. Because if that is the case, then I don't think that should be a valid policy. Because questions and comments that, like I'm doing now, come up from being present at the board meeting and listening. So I would take that into account going forward before a second reading or before any policy changes.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
They would fill out a sheet just like in the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
It is.
No, but you still could make a comment. You just fill out the sheet. That's all.
Because I would be willing to like fill out a sheet afterward or before.
Yeah.
Things come up, so that could be a method.
Yeah, the sheet would be like right there. You can still fill it out, give it to the clerk.
Okay. So thank you. That's a good suggestion to keep moving forward on this and really get something that will work. Definitely not about not getting people involved,
Yeah.
but holding us more accountable for responding later on.
I think the comment is inadvertently somehow, or the idea is inadvertently somehow, somebody isn't able to speak because they didn't follow an arbitrary policy. I think that's the concern, right? That there's some sort of an arbitrary step in a policy that doesn't get followed that somehow disqualifies somebody from public comment. If we can quell that concern, I think we're in good shape.
You guys still run your meeting.
Yep.
You guys still could take questions.
Yep.
Your policy is a guideline.
Yep.
It's not, hopefully you don't run everything like, wow, this is clause number 22.5 and we can't,
Yeah.
But, there's going to still be forms right there. There's, people will fill them out, who spoke, where they're from, that they could get a letter. I mean, that's basically it.
Yep.
So that's the hope and dream.
Okay. I don't believe we need an executive session tonight. Oh, yes. So in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I don't know who was first. I'll give that one to Patty. The second?
Dwayne was right there too.
Yeah.
Dwayne's the second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.